There are fewer words that strike fear into my heart than these. Don't worry, I know a shortcut. Growing up, me and my family would often joke with my dad that his shortcuts were most often long cuts. And yet in our age of technology, with the maps we have, with GPS, with apps on our phone, we don't really have an excuse for getting lost. We always know where we are going. Directions are easy to find and follow. And as we look into the Bible, we see this familiar story of the wise men. The wise men who travel far to see Jesus. They travel across their land to get to Bethlehem. Why? Because they want to see the Savior. And of course we know in biblical times they didn't have access to the maps and the GPS and the phones that we have. And yet God provided a very special way for them to get direction. God provided a star in the sky, and this star they recognized and they could follow through the night. And it led them, first of all the way to Jerusalem. And as they arrived into Jerusalem, the wise men began asking people if they knew where the king was. But news got to the other king, King Herod, who was the king of that land during those days. News got to him that these wise men were looking for another king, a newborn king. And he wasn't happy. He was very angry because in his eyes, he was the only king. And so he ordered that the wise men were to be brought to him. And as the wise men went before Herod and met with him, he told them to go and to find where this new king is and then come back and tell him. You see, Herod wanted to have baby Jesus killed because he was the only king in his eyes. And so off they went again, and as they went, God marvelously displayed the star in the sky, and they followed this star, and they followed all the way until it rested in Bethlehem above the place where Jesus was lying. And so in they went. Mary and Joseph were probably surprised, but also very thankful as they stood and watched the wise men come in and instantly fall to their knees and worship this baby, their true king. And then the wise men provided those gifts to Jesus, showing their love, their affection, their worship to the true king. And then that was their stay over, and they left. And as they left, God gave them a dream. And in that dream, he told them not to go back to King Herod because he was an evil man who wanted to have Jesus killed. And so they went home worshipping, praising God, but avoiding King Herod. It's an interesting story, isn't it? It's a familiar one that we all know. And we see these two kings matching up against each other. On one side we see King Herod, the evil, wicked, sinful king who wants nothing but death. But on the other hand, we see Jesus. Jesus who would grow up to be gentle and lowly. Jesus who would grow up to be compassionate and kind and loving to everyone. Who would bring life to all who believe. And if I asked you, who deserved worship? Which king deserved worship from the wise men and gifts from the wise men? The answer is obvious, isn't it? Clearly, Jesus deserved worship over the evil king. And the same is for today. Even today, Jesus still deserves our worship. You see, everyone worships something. Even you today, you worship something. We're all born with this desire to spend our time, our energy, our efforts, our adoration on something. Some people worship money, or work, or family. Others worship individuals and celebrities, or sports teams. Everyone is designed to worship. And yet because of sin, we don't worship the true king. Because of sin, we worship the creation rather than the creator. And I wonder this Christmas, will you look to Jesus and see that he deserves worship? Why does Jesus deserve worship? Well, it's because Jesus is God's Son. He deserves worship because he's God's Son who came down to this world to live a perfect life and to die on the cross, to take the punishment for sin. That if you believe in him, put your trust in him, you can have a relationship with God. Everyone worships something. And I wonder, will you see the star? See the star that led and directed the wise men to worship the true King. I want to direct you, even now, to worship the true King, Jesus the Saviour.